All right, and we are live. What is going on, my specialist SPC here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Midwest Cantina podcast. So today, you guys, I've got myself a very special guest. I've been watching his channel for a good about 3 to 4 years. He's really knowledgeable about the horror genre. Really enjoy watching his stuff, so I'm glad to have him on here. Guys, please welcome Mr. Cody Leach to the channel.
What is going on, everybody?
First of all, man, thank you so much for being here. And also, I know it's been a couple weeks, but congrats on 50,000 subscribers.
Thank you, man. That was a big milestone for me.
Yeah, you definitely deserve it. Like I said, I like your brutal honesty in your videos. That's definitely my favorite part about it.
That's what I go for. I see a lot of I'm not gonna name names. I see a lot in my peers where it seems like they kind of say what they think they were supposed to say, and I've just never been that way. I'm like, it sucks. You walk out of a movie, you're like, oh, this comment section's gonna hurt. But I'd rather say how I feel. I don't know. I don't understand the notion of just saying what you're expected to say.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, even I know when you do ranking videos and stuff, it's always like, yeah, this isn't the right list. This is just my list. So
yeah, exactly. Buddy of mine, Sean Chandler, I think that's actually like his catchphrase.
Yeah. Actually, I've had him here on the podcast a couple times too, and we've been talked about movies and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's like my list isn't the right list. It's just my list.
I mean, it shouldn't be that hard of a concept for people to understand, but you'd be surprised how many people don't get it. It's like, this isn't, if we were all we just agreed on one list, this would be pretty boring. Like, all right, what's the top 10? All right, yeah, well, we already know. I don't need to click on your video because it's obvious, right? But that's kind of the beauty of it. You click on, see what this guy's top 10 is, and oh, wow, I totally disagree. Let's talk about it. That should be the fun of it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess to kick off this podcast, Cody, what first got you into the horror genre?
It was Child's Play 3, actually. My dad was playing it. I want to say I was about 4 years old. I know I was young. And I walked into our apartment, and he had the movie just kind of queuing up on the VHS. And I remember seeing the molten plastic twirling around and the Child's Play 3 logo. I still have that image in my head, if nothing else. And I just remember sitting down and watching it, or, I was a kid, so I probably wasn't watching the whole thing, but I watched a good bit of it at least. And it kind of just kicked open the door. I was like, what are these movies? And then I looked in my dad's collection, and he had all the most of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and a couple more Child's Play movies. And I just started watching those. And from then on out, it was just an addiction. I was very young, and people can have their opinions about that, but I was never scared by it. For some reason, it just always made sense in my head that this was fake. This was entertainment. There's not really a Chucky under the bed or a Freddy in the closet. And I was like the only kid that I knew that even knew what these were. So it was like this cool little secret world that I had to myself for quite a long time. And that's kind of one of the reasons why when I got onto YouTube, I quickly found a passion for talking about horror, because that kind of went all through to my adult life. Like, obviously when you get into your teens, when you get into your adult years, people know about horror, but I've never really found anybody that was as passionate about it as me. More often than not, you would find people that they either went to go see all the January, February horror films, and that was kind of their taste, which was nauseating for me. Or you had people that are like, oh, horror's horrible. And I'm like, okay. And then you get into YouTube, or even if you just went on message boards or whatever you do, and you see this other collection of people like you that have such passion for it, it was kind of intoxicating. I was like, hell yeah, I'm not the only one that loves this stuff.
It almost kind of seems like people kind of just rag on the horror genre like it's just an easy, quick cash grab, because it's just the basic premise in each film. But for me, just before I got on here, I just got done watching the first Psycho movie again. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy shot to take at horror. I've been reviewing the Wrong Turn movies here recently, and when I watch those, I'm like, these are probably the movies that people watch when they say that horror is horrible, because they're correct. These aren't very good, but I always feel like it's a very face value knock to have in the horror genre. I mean, it's still something that we're kind of shedding today. I mean, we've only started to get, quote unquote awards consideration over the past couple of years with, Guillermo del Toro winning Best Picture. And then you get Jordan Peele's movies that are starting to get up there, and Ari Aster. Like, now people are starting to take notice, like, okay, like, it's not just blood and guts and tits. There's other things that the horror genre has to offer. You just have to know what movies to watch, or know what these movies are trying to say underneath all the blood and gore. And we're getting there. We're getting there slowly.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while, man, but like, I'll still say personally for me, I guess the 80s is probably the best era of horror, in all honesty.
Yeah, nostalgia is a powerful thing. I'd have to agree with you. It's there's some great movies coming out nowadays. There's some great movies that I grew up with that came out 10, 15 years ago. But even me, who grew up in the 90s, I still gravitate more towards the 80s stuff. I mean, for God's sakes, every time I do anything, people are always asking about Freddy or Michael or Jason. And, that was their era. So we're still here at 2021. We're still kind of feeding back into what was rocking back in the 80s.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. So, I mean, you kind of already answered my next question, what your first horror film was. What was it exactly, I guess, really gravitated you? Was it actually like Chucky himself, or?
I think it was a mix of things. I mean, when you're a kid watching Chucky, that kind of destroys one of the things that you feel comforting with, your toys, your dolls. That's kind of your whole world when you're 3, 4, 5 years old. And to find out that there's this version of a doll walking around that's strangling people and smashing people in garbage trucks. And that was kind of like, oh my God, I need to second guess some of these things that I'm playing with. But I think there was something about that just appealed more to me as a kid. And also just the fact that it was, horror is kind of like the taboo. It kind of explores that side of life, that side of reality that we hope we never experience. People getting killed and everything like that. But something about it whenever I was young, and the fact that I was instantly able to know that this was entertainment. I never had to be consoled. I never had to have my parents come in at night, be like, oh, Chucky's just a movie. It's okay. Like, I never had that. So, something about it just clicked with me. It was just something that was so wild and out there and taboo that I was like, this is awesome. I need more.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is like horror, I guess for me personally, is probably the most like effective genre that's out there right now. I mean, you got so many great movies. You got, The Shining, the first original Halloween film. Even to, I guess, a movie like Hereditary, which I will willingly say the first time I watched it, I absolutely hated it. I think that ending was just what ruined it for me, unfortunately. But I mean, even a film I still watch that I watched for the first time, man, right when it came out, was like The Strangers. Like, that film still, I can willingly say today, just terrifies me to my core. Like,
yeah, we all have different things that get under our skin too, which is kind of the beauty of it. It's just like with comedy, it's all subjective. Somebody might laugh at a dick and fart joke. Somebody might look at you like you're an idiot. But at the same time with horror, some people are scared by dolls. Some people are scared by clowns. Some people, it just takes a guy in a mask with a knife. Other people need something like Hereditary, where something's, looming in the background and there's some possession force. I mean, everybody kind of has their thing that gets under their skin. And that's always kind of fun too, to talk to people. They'll like something like Hostel or Saw. They're like, I love those movies, but you suggest Child's Play, and they're like, oh no, I can't do it. And you're like, wait a minute, what? So that is the weird thing about horror and how everybody experiences it, is that we all have our own tolerances for certain things, and they've certainly explored just about all of them by now in the genre.
Yeah, I mean, a word you use a lot is like the carnage candy kind of films, especially like the Saw movies. Like, for me, man, the first 3 are the only good ones. After that, they just get so just.
Yeah, it's not my thing. For as much as I love talking about the kills and the carnage candy and slasher movies, and there could easily be a really shitty movie that's saved by a couple of great kills. I'm the same way with Saw, with Hostel, stuff like that. Like I still haven't finished my Saw review series because they've pushed back Spiral a couple of times. But even whenever I was going at a good clip with them, I was just like, oh, it's not going to get any better from here. I really only really like the second one. Most people love the first one because of the ending, and I'm like, well, beyond the ending, is there anything really there that is great? And for me, I've always thought the second one had a little bit more to offer. But yeah, the first three are the only ones that I watch, and I'm like, all right, there's still some stuff going on. And then 4 Beyond is just like, let's see how gross we can make this stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah, because I know last night I was watching your review for Wrong Turn 3, and just how you start, you're just like, it's not going to get much better, is it?
Nope. Nope. That's a franchise that I've always seen the first one. I've seen that movie probably 9 or 10 times. And even that one, for being, the quote unquote best of the series, I think most people would agree with that. Haven't seen the new one yet, but it's a mediocre, cannibal horror movie. There's nothing about Wrong Turn that gave the genre a kick in its ass or anything like that. It's just a decent little movie that came out. It was a little surprise, but yeah, you move on to the other ones and it's like, oh, wow. Okay. This is what we're in for. You get to the third one. And, oh, Jesus, it's still going. I watched the fourth one last night for the first time, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Two more. Keep it going.
I think that's still one thing that really just hurts the horror genre overall is just the constant sequels. It's like you get a couple of good ones here and there. Like I will say it, and I'm a diehard Halloween fan. I respect everybody's opinions. I'm not one of those guys who are like, oh, you don't like Halloween 2018, how dare you? That's just cardinal sin. Like,
never met those people ever.
Right? Because I know, like, an unpopular opinion of yours, you like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I absolutely hate that film. I cannot even stick it into my DVD player.
I get it. That's one of those movies where it's like I totally understand it. I don't even need to hear the explanation why. If someone's just like, oh, I'm like, yep, you're right, I get it. But for some reason, that's just a movie that, and again, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever. It's not like top of my ranking, but when I watch it, I just feel like there's a lot more to offer in that one that kind of floats under the radar a bit. I feel like a lot of people really focus on, the Rob Zombie isms, if you will, and the character dialogue, and especially Loomis, which I'll agree is the worst part of that movie. Just it's like, why is this character being this way? But when you look at the kills, the brutality, especially for me, the way that they reveal to Laurie that she is Myers' sister, I thought that was pretty brilliant, the way that he did it. So for me, when I watched the first one, it's just like, okay, the first third is unwatchable. I can't stand any of this, childhood, hillbilly, redneck talk. Then you get into the second half or the second act, and it's like, all right, there's a lot of missed opportunity here. So much opportunity to have some really good stuff with him and Loomis back in the day, which we've only been talked about, like, but a little bit of dialogue from Loomis in the first couple of movies, and they really don't do anything with it. And then you get to the third film, and it's like, okay, well, this is the best part, and it's just because it's a quickened remake of the first film on steroids. So when I look at that, and then you look at the second film, to me, it just has a little bit more to offer. But again, I totally get it when someone's like, ugh, I'm like, yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, man, I have yet to find a Rob Zombie film I like. Like, I 100% agree with what you said. The first act of Halloween is just, I can't stand that either. If I ever have a Halloween marathon, I just skip all that, get to the 15 years later, get to the modern time stuff, and that's where I go from. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in theaters, and I was really excited about it. I was not really a fan of Rob Zombie at the time. He hadn't had too many movies out, but something about the approach that he was taking about, well, let's tell the other side of the story. I was like, that's going to be kind of cool. And he's got the brutality to do something cool. And then I remember sitting in the theater with my dad, who was exactly the same as me, just did not like House of a Thousand Corpses. We didn't even get into The Devil's Rejects. And he watched the movie, and just the first couple lines of dialogue was like, oh, God.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, man. I don't know why. Every Rob Zombie film I've seen, that's like how the entire film is. It's like,
yeah, I mean, the only film that I feel like kind of escapes that a bit is The Lords of Salem, which comes so close to being like a genuinely good horror film, but his storytelling really just kind of blows it in the last act. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like I've always said Rob Zombie as a director, as a guy with some kind of a vision, with a certain style, I think that he is a damn good director, but I think he is a god-awful writer. And until he lets somebody else write a movie and he directs it, we're never going to see like a best of all time movie from him. You know, some people will argue The Devil's Rejects is in there. I disagree. But I think that he has the potential to deliver one of those movies that is like, holy shit, did you see that? But he's got to let somebody else write it. And I don't think he's ever going to let that happen. I think he just loves doing all of it, which, you know, all respect to him. He's got a fan base, but I'm with you. Even my favorite movie of his, I'm still like, it's a decent movie. It's nothing great.
Yeah. Well, even too, like remakes and reboots, like some I honestly think are better than the original. Like my favorite remake of all time. Well, it's been tied lately. It's between Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Two
of my favorites as well. It's always a hard conversation to have. I feel like I kind of gain a reputation, too, for being the guy that likes the remake more than the original. But again, just like with the subjective opinion thing, a lot of people don't comprehend just generational difference. Like, I didn't grow up with the original Texas Chainsaw. I wasn't somebody that walked into the theaters in the 70s and went, holy shit, what was that? The remake was my introduction to the series. And while I respect what the original did, and I certainly understand in the 70s why that would be like this riveting thing that people would stick with them. That was kind of my experience with the remake. It was the wildest thing that I had seen up to that point. I hadn't really had a whole lot of experience in the cannibal hillbilly, you know, torture porn type genre. And the same thing with Dawn of the Dead. I didn't grow up with the Romero movies either. And I don't really think that I would have cared much for them because I'm not really a big zombie fan. A lot of the movies that I've seen in the zombie genre just don't really do it for me. And especially after The Walking Dead, it's kind of like a burnt out genre at this point. But Dawn of the Dead, the remake, I just thought was fucking awesome. I thought it was incredible. 28 days, 28 weeks later, I thought those were incredible. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have when you have somebody that they see a remake and that was to them what the original was to you. I think it's an interesting conversation, but you have too many people that's like, oh, you like that one better? You're an idiot. And now there's some that I understand. Like if somebody's like, oh man, I love the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. The original's garbage. I'd be like, we need to have a talk now. And I need to understand this, but still it's funny how love for remakes is still such a taboo thing, even though there's a lot of them that suck, but there's a handful of them that are pretty awesome.
Yeah, I could willingly say the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is probably my third favorite in the entire franchise. Like I love that movie. And the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, that's a tricky one because I love Freddy to death and I love that franchise, but there's a handful of movies that I would understand if everyone's like, that's garbage too. So it's not to be your third favorite. I'd be curious what the fourth and fifth favorite is, but there's at least four movies in that franchise where I'm like, I could see it liking the remake better than those. Actually, I have my list right here, surprisingly.
Hey, look at that.
Number 4 is the Dream Warriors.
Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. Start from number 1 and go down.
My first unpopular opinion. My favorite of the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is Freddy versus Jason.
All right, guys. Well, it's been fun talking. And
I don't know what it is. I love Freddy in that movie. He's like the perfect blend. Like I compare him.
I love Freddy versus Jason, by the way. Don't get me wrong, but to be better than the original and Dream Warriors and stuff, that's a bold opinion. It's bold. I like it, but it's bold.
Right? Yeah, I don't know what it is, man. I love Freddy in that. He reminds me a lot of like Mark Hamill's Joker. He's like the perfect blend of like horrifying but like hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, I was infatuated with that movie for like a solid year. Because I had always heard rumors of it. My dad had always told me about the rumors of it. I actually rented Jason Goes to Hell back at when video stores were a thing. I rented that just because I wanted to see the scene at the very end. I watched the entire movie just to see the glove come out. And I was like, man, why haven't they done this yet? What the hell? I mean, when you're a kid, you don't understand the politics of it. You're like, you're printing money, just do it. And then finally, I remember I was really big into message boards when I was an early teen, like in 7th, 8th grade, stuff like that. And there was people talking about Freddy versus Jason, and it's green lit, and there's this and that. This is before we had the internet, where we knew every single stage of production. Well, we had the internet, but it wasn't what it was today. And we Freddy versus Jason. I remember I just randomly typed in one day www.freddyversusjason.com, just kind of dicking around, and an actual site came up, and I was like, what the hell is this? And there was production stills, and there was like a motion poster, and then there was a trailer, and I was like, oh my God. And this was the old dial-up days where you had to click play in the trailer and then click pause and wait 25 minutes for it to load so that you could play it and actually see the whole thing. And I remember I watched the trailer and I was like, this is fucking real. This is real. It's happening. And I lost my mind. And all of 2002 and all of 2003, which is when it came out, if I'm not mistaken, I was looking up any detail I could find on this movie. And then we finally saw it in theaters. And then I saw it again at the drive-in. And then whenever it came out on DVD, I was watching that damn thing like at least 3 times the first couple of weeks. And it was, yeah, I was infatuated with that one. I think it's a lot of fun. People that say it's horrible or whatever, I don't really quite get it. I think the movie is exactly what that type of movie should be. I think that I think it's a pipe dream to think that a movie called Freddy versus Jason could be like a best of all time type movie. It's supposed to be a fun little slasher romp where they go at each other in the end. To me, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, no, I love it. Like, so I said it's a huge unpopular opinion, but after making my list, yeah, because second place is the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
Yeah, third is Nightmare Remake. 4 is Dream Warriors. 5 is New Nightmare. 6 is Freddy's Revenge. And then Dream Master, Dream Child, and if it makes you feel better, man, Freddy's Dead's still the worst.
Yeah, that's icing on top of the cake. What about the remake makes it better than New Nightmare and Dream Warriors? I'm curious about that. What does the remake do that puts it at third?
Man, like for me, I feel it's more atmospheric for me. Like I get more of like I don't want to use the word dread, but that's the only like word that's coming to my mind. Like, especially in like the nightmares, like it's so atmospheric and you feel like you're just in there with these characters. Now, don't get me wrong. There's not the best acting in the film. I will say that, but I definitely like Jackie Earle Haley. I think he actually does a really good performance as Freddy, even though the look of him is pretty cringeworthy, I can say, but
he does really good for what he has to work with. I've always said that if he would have had a great script and a good director, I don't think anybody would have ever had an issue with his Freddy.
And I don't know. I like the dream sequences. For me, they're just so well done. The cinematography in there is just great, and just
okay.
I don't know. That's really all I got, in all honesty.
Yeah. Different strokes for different folks.
That's right, man. That's right. Even another good remake was the Child's Play remake. I actually really, really enjoy that. I didn't think I would because, you see the Buddy doll. And it's like...
The doll is the main problem with the movie, for sure. And I'm somebody that really enjoys the remake, but the doll was hard to defend. All throughout the trailers and the stills and everything, I was like, it's got to see it in motion. You got to see it in motion. It looks like garbage. Yeah, but you got to see it in motion. It might work. And then you see the movie and you're like, oh, it looks like shit.
Yeah.
That's one of those remakes that I always say, if you're going to remake a classic, you need to go bold and do something really different with it, because that movie already exists. Don't just take that skeleton and make it look shiny and new, because by default, you're already going to be losing because you're comparing yourself even more directly to something that somebody loves. But you take the Child's Play remake, they take kind of the spirit of Child's Play, but they go in a wildly different direction. They go AI versus voodoo. They go more the relationship between Chucky and Andy, which we never really had on the original movies. It was just manipulation from the start. It kind of has a commentary on parenting throughout the entire movie with the mom and her relationship with her son. I mean, like 10 minutes into the movie, she looks outside and at night and it's raining. She's like, oh, there's some kids down there by that fire drum. Go play with them. And then you have that kind of also leaks from Andy to Chucky and how Chucky experiences things and doesn't understand what he's doing wrong. And that's kind of, that's something that we, parents always have to look at with their kids is are they going to absorb something and get the wrong message out of it? The kills I thought were great. There was a lot of things about that movie I thought they did pretty damn good. I think it's a shame that people don't understand the finances and the politics of things, and they just got so stuck on this narrative that they were like stealing Child's Play away from Don Mancini or something. And it's like, Don Mancini's still going to do what he wants to do. This doesn't change anything about that. The only thing he could do is help. If it's good, then people want to see more Child's Play. They're like, holy shit, there's a TV series coming out. Oh, you got nothing but benefit from that. But yeah, this whole, Team Mancini hashtag thing that was going through just kind of, it bugged me the entire time. I'm somebody that loves the original movies. And despite really, really disliking what Tom Mancini has done since he's gained full creative control, still have respect for what he gave in the original movies because we wouldn't have them without him. But I was somebody, I'm like, he's not doing so well with Child's Play. Let's give somebody else a shot. I don't know. A lot of people just really wanted to hate it. They wanted it to crash and burn, and that's never good. You never want a name to suddenly bomb at the box office because it doesn't matter who's working on it now. All people see is the name. They don't know that Don Mancini did or did not work on this.
Mm-hmm. It's even like, I don't know if you can tell, I'm a huge Star Wars guy, but it's the kind of weirdly the same way with like the Rise of Skywalker. Like so many people hated Last Jedi and everybody just wanted Rise of Skywalker to be so much better. And some people hated it even more, but.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because I walked into The Last Jedi and I said, there is no possible way that this is not going to be the best Star Wars movie ever because it had Rian Johnson's name on it. And I loved what they did with Force Awakens. I was like, man, you got that set up. Plus you got one of the best directors and storytellers working today. This is going to knock it out of the park. And I'm somebody that I had to go see it twice before I could even review it because I just felt so conflicted about what I felt. And I'm at the point where I think, my solidified opinion on The Last Jedi is that this is technically the best looking Star Wars movie I've ever seen. Like direction wise, cinematography wise, like the whole throne room fight and the way that they use colors and all that stuff was phenomenal. Story wise, it's one of my least favorites. I hated almost everything that they did with it. I didn't like any of the major, let's surprise them. Let's pull the rug out from under them and let's just change all the expectations. For me, if you're going to do that, you better have something better in store. And to me, it was more about surprising people, but what we were expecting was on paper better for the story. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the Rise of Skywalker, and I had a lot of faith. I was like, all right, I don't know how they're going to course correct from here without just ignoring the movie, but we'll see. And they didn't really pull that off. I think that there was fun moments with the movie. There's things that I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but the whole movie felt like an apology for The Last Jedi. And now you're in this weird middle. You're like, okay, everybody that loved The Last Jedi now is pissed because you just basically deleted the movie that they really like. And everybody that didn't like The Last Jedi is pissed because now you're introducing all this shit that was never introduced in the first place. And you're just throwing stuff at the wall to give everybody what they said online, what they wanted. And it's a weird movie. I still haven't rewatched it since the theaters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like you with with Halloween too. Like I definitely understand why people aren't big fans of even just the new trilogy in general. Like mm-hmm. I completely understand, but for me, I've had a good time with them. I love The Force Awakens. It's probably still my favorite. I love Rise of Skywalker. I'm still kind of in the middle right now with The Last Jedi. And I mean,
the things that happen in The Rise of Skywalker to me are fine, but they just feel so out of nowhere because they didn't have that middle chapter to build it up because clearly they didn't have a plan. It was like every time they were starting a new movie, they're like, all right, what do you want to do now? And because they have the director of The Force Awakens and then this middle chapter, and then he comes back and has to finish it. He's like, all right, well, to hell with what that guy said. I'm going back to what I was thinking back in the first movie, but we just kind of skipped the second movie, all the development. So Palpatine is just introduced in the opening crawl, like, oh, hey, by the way, Palpatine's back. And then you have the whole thing with, you know, the romance or whatever you want to call it between Rey and Kylo, which never really felt like that was developed in the second movie. There was a connection there, but it never felt that way. Finn, I felt like was just tossed aside. Okay, whatever about that guy. And in The Force Awakens, he was probably the character that I was most interested in. What's this guy going to do? A stormtrooper becoming a Jedi? That's pretty awesome. And they never really fulfill that. Even down to the whole thing with, you know, Rey kind of taking all the Jedis together and taking out Palpatine, and, you know, I'm Rey Skywalker now. It's kind of dead on arrival when it came. It just, I don't know. It's a movie where I'm like, I kind of like what's going on here, but it just feels weird. It feels dirty. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me personally, as a Star Wars fan, I was still overall satisfied with The Rise of Skywalker, but I can agree with the Palpatine stuff. I'm more in the middle because they do some things so good, but then it's like, okay, yeah, you threw him in. Why don't you build him up and show him in like the beginning of the second act or something, and kind of build it up so we can be like, oh my God, that's why he's back. Gotcha. But
yeah, that is opening crawl. Oh, he's back. I'm like,
yeah, the dead
that's all we
speak.
What? Yep.
I mean, to preach their own, I guess. I mean, I look at it this way, man. They could still probably make a better movie than I could.
Oh, I guess so. I'll never know until I try.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you kind of brought up earlier your favorite horror icon was Freddy. Kind of curious, how come Freddy? What is it about Freddy that really just draws you to him?
I mean, it's damn near a tie between Freddy and Chucky. I think Chucky, I did some rankings not too long ago where I kind of had to definitively say it. And the way that I landed on it was that I think Freddy's my favorite horror icon. Child's Play by a nose is probably my favorite horror franchise. But basically, they're neck and neck for it. If I didn't have to pick, I'd put them both at one. And I think I just like horror icons with personality. I mean, you have people that love Michael or they love Jason, and then you have people that love Freddy and Chucky. And it's because you have this, you know, the strong, silent, looming killer that never says a word or shouldn't say a word, Rob Zombie. But then you have Freddy and Chucky where they have that fear. Like Freddy especially is terrifying. You know, this burned guy, this child killer / rapist, you know, depending on what movie you watch, they lean more one way or the other. And then he comes back for your dreams, and just that whole concept about you can't really get away from them. You know, you could run away from Michael, you could run away from Jason, you could damn sure run away from Chucky, but Freddy, eventually you're gonna have to sleep, so you go ahead and run. You're just gonna be more tired. That whole concept I think is fascinating, and just the way that they balance the fear with the comedy, at least in the first and the third movie. There's not too much comedy in the first one, but there's a couple of lines, you know, I'm your boyfriend now, stuff like that. But the third movie especially kind of finds that balance. But I've just always enjoyed that about him. I've always enjoyed that of all of them, I would want to encounter him the least. But at the same time, he's just so much fun to watch because he's just enjoying the hell out of everything that he's doing. Like Freddy vs. Jason's a great example. He another movie that has a great balance where he's terrifying for what he's doing. And I think it has some pretty dark representations of him in that movie, even though it's played up for fun. But he's having a blast the whole time. And you just don't get to experience that with Michael or Jason. They're more just a curse, this force of evil. But Freddy's a force of evil that's loving it. And I think that's just what kind of draws me to it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely understandable. I mean, I'm obviously, with Halloween being my favorite franchise, I love Michael. I just love his portrayal in the first film. Just emotionless, just motiveless, just getting out there to just kill. He's just pure evil. When they start introducing, you know, the whole family heritage stuff with him being Laurie's brother and Jamie's uncle and all that stuff, it loses me a bit, but like, it still draws me in because it's still like, okay, well, it's already out there. Let's see what you can do. Let's see if you can keep me interested at all. And even too, I used to hate The Curse of Michael Myers. I used to hate it so much, but ever since I went to Halloween 2018, ever since I've been watching it, a couple weeks ago, I just rewatched the entire franchise just for the heck of it. I love The Curse of Michael Myers, and I do want to honestly thank Halloween 2018 because he's just so brutal in that movie, and it's George P. Wilbur, man. He's up there with the best Myers.
Yeah, I think he was my number 3 when I ranked him. So yeah, I agree. Curse of Michael Myers is interesting because there's things about it that I like, and then there's things about it that are trash. And it's like no matter what cut of the movie, there's always a weird balance of that. But it is one of the cooler representations of Myers, and the kills and his kind of his brutality, like this force that he has, is heightened a bit in 6.
Yeah, like I said, I think watching James Jude Courtney's Michael Myers and now going back and rewatching everything that I haven't watched in a while just really makes me appreciate these films a lot more. I mean, I still hate Rob Zombie's films. The second film is like in my middle. I still don't really like Revenge of Michael Myers at all. That one.
That's my least favorite.
Yeah, I used to like it, but now that I've been rewatching things a lot more, the only sequence in that whole film I like is everything inside the barn. For me, that's the only decent part of the entire film.
Yeah, I don't like the look of Myers. I don't like the portrayal of Myers. I don't like the Cult of Thorns storyline. I hate the fact that they make Jamie a mute. You have Tina in that movie, which is just like nails on a chalkboard. Even Loomis is creepy. He's like up in everybody's personal space every 5 seconds. It's just I don't know, that movie. I used to not care much for the 4th film, and then I eventually kind of grew to really enjoy that one once I kind of took a step back, got past the shitty mask, and just started watching what the movie's actually trying to do. And I really enjoy that one now. And for them to come back and, not necessarily reaching the heights of the first 2, but bring that franchise back to where the coals are white hot again, man. Michael is in style. Now we got to do another one, and they followed up with that. It's just like, if they would have followed up 4 with a movie that was on par with 4, I mean, who knows where this franchise could have gone, but they just went from 4 to 5, and it's like, okay, you fucked it up.
Even like Halloween Resurrection, like that used to be one of my favorites, but now...
Oh, wow. Don't say that too loud.
I know, right? Well, I like the concept of like how it's almost weirdly like found footagey in some points, but at the same time, that's also one of the biggest like weak points about the film.
What I like about Resurrection, what I liked about it when I first saw it when I was a kid and didn't have that strong of a taste, was that was the movie that kind of reset the stage. It was like, now Michael's just a killer. There's no family left. And that's one of the main things that I was disappointed with 2018 is they made such a big deal out of, nope, she's not his sister in this one. So it's going to be, all bets are off. And then the whole movie is about getting them together again. It's just like, well, you kind of defeated the whole purpose, and then they leave her alive. And now it's going to be another Laurie and Michael trilogy. And what's the point then? It's exactly the same. They might as well be brother and sister again. I kind of want to see somebody explore a story with Michael where he doesn't have that motivation. Like, what do you do with that character when there's not a Laurie around? Resurrection's kind of the negative side of that possibility, but I think there's a lot of potential to do something cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because they're definitely now this film, Michael now has, a motive for everything that happened at the end of H18. But I'm looking forward to Halloween Kills. I will willingly say it. It's my most anticipated film for next year or this year, I guess.
I'm looking forward to seeing what it can be. I'm not excited about it because I've got a lot of baggage. I've got a lot of negative experience with certain parts of the fan base that kind of killed my interest in it. But with all that being said, I feel like people don't believe me. Like when I walk into Halloween Kills, I want to walk out and be like, holy shit, yes, that is what I want. Can't wait for ends. I don't want to walk out and go, they fucked it up again. Let me roll the cameras. But I know somebody that has seen the the film that they sent out last February. So I know somebody that has seen the movie, and he hasn't given me specifics, but things that he has told me has both worried me and excited me. Um, I'm not going to get into specifics, but apparently it's a bloodbath and the kills are gnarly as fuck. So that I'm really looking forward to that. Apparently the humor is turned up a bit, which I'm like, oh God, no, because I didn't like the humor in Halloween 2018 at all. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to land on this one. I might walk out and say, you know what? They fixed some of the things that I love. And they kind of doubled down on some of the shit that I hated. So here we go. 3.5 again. I don't know. We might see, but I hope that it's awesome. I mean, I don't want to walk out of that one being disappointed again, because my expectations were just through the roof for 2018. I knew in my soul that this was going to be an awesome Halloween movie, and I walked out going, how do you fuck that up? But that's just me.
I mean, comedy can be good when it's utilized right, but like,
sure.
Man, I got peanut butter all over my penis. Like,
yeah,
how is that funny? That's not funny at all.
No, you got that whole character, really. You got the guy that was killed on the fence post. He's like, come on, they were feeding me guacamole in sexy ways. And it's like, who's writing this shit? Like, there was just lines in that movie where I'm like, why? Who laughed? Which one of you fuckers laughed? I want to know. Raise your hand in the credits.
I could say, like, I laughed the first time I watched it, but now the more and more I watch it, I'm like, okay. I mean, even I'm still at a solid 4. It's still good, but
even some of the other lines that aren't meant to be comedic, like a lot of Judy Greer's lines made me just want to throw my drink at the screen. Like when she was talking to Lori, there's like a scene where she's like, the world's not all about the world's about love and understand. And I'm like, people don't talk that way. What are you doing? Or when they're outside the restaurant and she's like, she gets all stoic and she's like, I had a past and I didn't want to tell you about it. And we were training and this and that. And I'm like, could you be more deadpan? Could we have that's the moment where I'm like, no, you should have cast somebody else for this role. You should have, goddamn her, Daniel Harris. You should have got Daniel Harris for this role. I thought it would have been a novelty. And I was the person saying, no, they don't really, if they don't have a character that matches her, it'd be cool, but she's not guaranteed a part in this movie. Calm down, fanboys. And then when I saw Judy Greer's performance, I'm like, oh no, Daniel Harris would have done better for this.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, man. I don't like Judy Greer. Like, I watched Jurassic World, and she's like easily, even though she's not in it that much, she's still one of the worst parts of that movie.
She just has some personality. Her personality comes across like it's not a very good movie, but Wes Craven's Cursed, like her character in that movie is kind of the personality of Judy Greer. That's kind of like the character you always expect her to play. She's kind of like the mean girl, you know what I mean? She's kind of like the one that's a little bit sneaky, but she's kind of a bitch. And when you see her try to play a straight character, it just doesn't come across right. You're like, it just doesn't, something about your face just doesn't make this character work. I don't know what it is, but the one moment in that movie is when she's crying with the gun and then comes out and she's like, gotcha. I was like, yes, do more of that. And then that's it. Then the movie ends.
Only good part of her entire thing.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of funny you bring something like that up because, like, I think that about Vince Vaughn. Like, Vince Vaughn literally in all his comedies plays almost the same character in every single movie. Just the other night, I watched Freaky for the first time. My favorite Vince Vaughn role. I love it. He did so good. I loved that movie. Was amazing. That was a great movie.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, he's good. It's funny. You watch some of his early stuff before he really hit it with comedy. I mean, he had Swingers, but then he kind of went and did more dramatic stuff. And he's got a dramatic edge to him. Like, it's not the best movie in the world, but I've always liked Domestic Disturbance, a movie with him and John Travolta. John Travolta's son is kind of a bad kid. Vince Vaughn's going to be his new stepdad. And then he accidentally sees Vince Vaughn kill somebody, and he's trying to get everybody to understand that his stepdad's a murderer the whole movie, and John Travolta's the only one that believes him. It's a decent little, 3.5 star movie or whatever, but he's good at kind of playing the darker role in that. So he's got potential to do more, but yeah, he's kind of typecast in his comedy roles. You have movies like Wedding Crashers, and it's like that character right there is who you will play in every single comedy from now on. And yeah, when he does something different, you kind of get surprised because he's done the Vince Vaughn thing so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because so I'm rewatching / finishing the Psycho franchise. I've only watched up to 3. I just got done watching Bates Motel here a couple weeks ago because I'm going to do one big, massive ranking of the 5 movies and the 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I have yet to see the remake of Psycho. I just know from seeing some clips, he looks like he's probably one of the worst parts of it.
He is, and it's not really his fault. It's not like he's doing a bad job acting. It's just the direction that they take his character. When you watch the original Psycho, the brilliance of what Anthony Perkins does is that he balances somebody that looks so unassuming, so unthreatening, so almost childlike that you would never expect him to be a threat. And then by the end of the movie is just like this maddening, terrifying character. Vince Vaughn, they don't really balance the childlike innocent side of it very well at all. Like the scene in the movie in Psycho where she kind of suggests, why don't you put your mother in a home? And he kind of gets a little pissed about it, but he's still kind of childlike about it. Like, how dare you talk about my mother that way? In Vince Vaughn's performance, you could see him getting angry about it. And it's like, well, you played your hand right there. You know, it's the killer. Aside from the fact that the movie's literally shot for shot, aside from a couple of small additions, including a masturbation scene. Look forward to that. But that's the main thing with his performance is that it's not that he's acting bad. It's just that the way that they decided to play the character that time, it shows the hand. You know, you showed everybody your cards in the first act.
Because I'm mixed on wanting to see the 4th Psycho because I like 2 and 3. Those are pretty solid films. Like if I look at it,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. If I look at the 4, I guess the 3 right now, they're pretty consistent for like being good sequels to the original.
4's not bad. 4 is better than you'll think it would be. When you think straight to TV, 4th final sequel, you're like, oh. But it's... I'm kind of in the minority. I like the present day stuff with Anthony Perkins more than I like the flashback stuff because the movie's kind of half and half. It shows the origins of him and Mother. And he's played by the guy that played the kid in E.T. I can't think of his name right now. So you have those 2 performances kind of going where you have E.T. kid and then you have present day Anthony Perkins. But it does some interesting things with the sequel side of the story that I like. Like, I think it wraps up the character in a really nice way. But I don't really care for the prequel stuff. I'm known for really not liking prequels very much. I say it all the time. To me, prequels oftentimes kind of ruin the mystery of the original film or even some of the sequels. A lot of times they're really focused on let's go and let's answer all these questions that you've had for 2 or 3 movies. And most times the answers that they give are much less interesting than whatever you were thinking in your head. So to me, prequels tend to ruin things a little bit. So I don't care for the prequel side of the movie. I kind of enjoy the performance by the mother. Again, I can't think of the mother's name. I'm kind of blanking on actors' names right now. But it's turned up really over the top, but it's just enough to where I kind of enjoy it. But I like the way that it wraps up the story with Norman Bates. So it's decent. It's a decent little TV movie. It's not on par with Psycho 2 or Psycho 1 by any stretch. Psycho 3 is pretty decent too, but it's definitely a step down, but it's not like you jump off a cliff.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not as worried now to see it because that was one of the things I heard is it's like so bad. It's like one of the worst. It's almost worse than the remake, and I'm like,
no. I think that's I think that's people that like to deal with hyperbole.
So I guess another kind of interesting question: what do you think about like horror games? Do you almost think they're more effective than like watching a film because you're kind of experiencing it in a way?
It depends on the game. Like I'll tell you, when I played Resident Evil 7 in VR, that was the most effective horror experience I've ever had because I mean, the shit's this close to your face. And I don't know, something about VR, like that game's pretty terrifying on its own, whether you love the first person or not. But when you play it in VR, even just the way the air moves in the room around you that you can't see because you're like this, like you'll walk into a basement and just a little bit of air will touch your neck and you're like, I'm actually here. Like there's just something weird about it. That game was pretty intense. But you go back to like older game, like I remember the first Silent Hill was kind of my first survival horror experience. I unfortunately kind of skipped over the Resident Evil games until I was much older, but that first Silent Hill game, I remember being terrifying. Like I know I have to turn left and go down this hallway, but I really don't want to. Like you have to make the decisions that people do in the horror movies. On horror movies, you're kind of strapped in, wherever they decided to go, you're just there watching it. But games, you kind of have to make that choice. Like I hear breathing downstairs and my objective is downstairs, but I really don't want to do it. Is there another way? So it just depends on the game. There's some pretty bad horror games, but you get a good one, you get one that'll really make the hairs on your neck stand up, and it can rival a movie.
I agree with you 100% on Resident Evil 7. I've played through that game probably 4 or 5 times, and I still love it. I will still say it's my favorite of the Resident Evil franchise. I love it so much.
Oh, wow. Did you grow up with all of them?
I didn't. I wasn't introduced to Resident Evil until the 2017 game.
Oh, okay. Wow. Was that part 7?
Yeah, that was part 7.
Okay, so that was your first one. Okay, well, that makes sense. I skipped over all of them, not like intentionally. It wasn't like I thought they were trash. It just, I don't know, you miss things sometimes. I kind of missed Resident Evil until Resident Evil 4 came out. And in Resident Evil 4, I remember seeing things on like X Play or something. I didn't watch it very often, but you'd flip through the channels and I'm like, what is this? And I gave Resident Evil 4 a shot, and that game was like life for like a year. I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. And then I had to kind of retroactively go back and play the first 3 that were luckily on GameCube. And I've been a fan ever since. But yeah, Resident Evil 7 for me, I think it was my 3rd favorite, either 3rd or 4th favorite. It's way up there. I think that it is by far one of the best. I kind of get annoyed when people are like, it's first person, it sucks. So I'm like, you don't understand. Yeah. You don't get it. I'll use the phrase people use with, you just don't get it.
Because like I played the two remakes too. I played the Resident Evil 2 remake. I love that game.
So good. Third one's good too.
Yeah, I liked 3. It is more action based, but I loved it. It was still really
I think the disappointment with 3 was that they had made Mr. X so incredible in Resident Evil 2 that Nemesis didn't measure up. And Nemesis is supposed to be the best. Nemesis is supposed to be the biggest, the baddest. And when I'm being chased by this thing, I'm like, Mr. X was scared in this fucker. But yeah, I'm with you. I really enjoyed 3. People laugh when you say it's shorter because once you know the layout of a Resident Evil game, you can power through it in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. But even with that being in mind, my fastest that I've ever got with Resident Evil 2 was like just short of 2 hours. This was like just under 90 minutes. So even by that logic, it's a shorter game. But they cut out a lot from the original game, which was weird. If you're going to remake it, you'd think you'd want to add stuff, not take it away. But it's still a fun game. It's still a fun little run through. And once you do know the lay of the land, sometimes it is cool to just be like, I got 2 hours. Let me beat Resident Evil 3 real quick. Right. So yeah, but I love 2. Resident Evil 2, that was like the remake of that was it's in high competition for my favorite. My favorite's Resident Evil 4 just because I had so much love for it back in the day. And like you being introduced to it with Resident Evil 7, I was introduced to 4, so there's kind of a soft spot for that. But yeah, the experience that 2 remake gave, it was like, oh man, more of this, please. Silent Hill, can you guys do some shit like this, please? Like, can we get the first 3 games remade like this? Everybody wants it, literally everybody.
Mm-hmm. See, I've never played any of the Silent Hill games. Like, that's where me and my buddy Ethan, we differ so much. Like, I like Resident Evil. I've only played the newer games, and I've like maybe halfway done with 4 right now. And he grew up playing all the Silent Hill games, and he loves them.
Silent Hill is a little more psychological. Resident Evil is more in your face, zombies, monsters. Silent Hill is more psychological torture. And I do prefer Resident Evil, but Silent Hill was kind of, when I played the first game, I remember that just being absolutely terrifying. And then I kind of missed Silent Hill 2, which everybody seems to think is the best. I went back and played it last year on PlayStation Now. It's not the same experience when you go back and play a PlayStation 2 game in 2020. But I think that those games, whoever's in charge of Konami, I think that you're an idiot if you don't jump on doing some kind of a remake of at least the first 2 games, because it's just, you're literally going to print money. I don't get it.
Yeah, actually, just a little fun fact. Man, it's been like 3 months. I actually interviewed the voice actor and motion capture for Jill Valentine from the 3rd Resident Evil game.
Okay. Cool.
That was really an interesting, getting like the background of like how you actually do motion capture and everything is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
Because another game I like, I don't know, I'm sure you probably played them, are the Outlast games.
I played the first one. I didn't play the second one. But yeah, the first one's pretty good. It's different. All you have is a camera. You just survive.
Yeah. The second one's not bad, in my opinion. You're more like out in the open. You're in like the desert in like Arizona somewhere, and you're running away from like this cult.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad. I'd say at least give it a try at least one time in your life.
Gotcha.
So we are getting to the top of the hour. I got only 2 more questions left for you, Cody, and I already know what the answer is to this next question, but I really, really just want to hear you talk about it because I know it's your favorite. What's your favorite horror movie of all time?
The Thing. The Thing is my favorite. It's always been close between that and The Lost Boys. I grew up with The Lost Boys and watched it ad nauseum, but The Thing to me is just kind of like everything you want in a horror movie. It's got amazing practical effects, which every time I see CGI effects now, I'm like, just watch The Thing and do that. To me, it's John Carpenter's best. I love the story. The way that it explores paranoia, I think, is brilliant. It's got a great cast. I mean, you have somebody like Kurt Russell at the lead, which is awesome, but you have a lot of other kind of mostly actors you never really see again. And it's not really, they're not characters that you really dive into and get to know a whole lot about, but they just give you just enough to kind of care about some of them or know who is who. And you are right there along with the characters are kind of like, who's the Thing? Is that guy the Thing? Maybe he is, maybe he's not. It has to me, the greatest jump scare of all time with the blood test scene. To me, that's like 101. If you're going to do a jump scare scene, study this, like building it up, false expectations, and then you hit people with it. You don't just, turn the music down and have a black cat jump out. Yeah, I think that movie is brilliance.
Yeah. My favorite horror movie of all time is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I love everything about it. My favorite aspect of the whole film, just overall, is the Overlook Hotel. I just love how huge and open it is, and just how the way he frames all the shots. You just shows how small these 3 characters are within this huge, almost vast kind of paranormal world they live in.
Yeah, the hotel's like a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my favorite scene in that whole movie is the very first time Jack goes to the gold room.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's just it's literally just the turning point of the film. And it just.
How'd you feel about Dr. Sleep?
I love Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, I loved it too.
Like horror movie wise, The Shining is still my favorite, but I will willingly say I think Dr. Sleep is a better made movie overall.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love the blend of Kubrick and King in there. I'm reading Dr. Sleep right now, the book. I'm about halfway through, and it's great so far. But the film is just great. It's not horrifying by any means, but it does do the horror stuff very well. And I look at it almost like a comic book movie in a weird way. Yeah,
it is, because it's about kind of people, not really superpowers, but powered humans fighting each other. So on a very surface level, I've heard that comparison quite a few times, but then it turns up the horror right in the right spots. Like when they kidnap the kid and they're literally cutting him open, and it's like, oh shit, we're going there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Even a lot of people, I didn't know this. A lot of people did not like when they went back to the Overlook. Everybody thought that's when the movie just took a downward spiral.
I don't understand that at all. Because to me, that was the perfect way to, like you said, blend Kubrick and King, because you want to. The Shining movie is, I'll go out on a limb and say, is just as iconic as the book for different reasons. I think that you would be alienating a huge part of your audience if you chose one over the other. So I think that it was a good way to be the adaptation of the book sequel, but at the same time be a very solid sequel to the movie.
Yeah, it does things so well. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you know, it's hard to put paper to screen for certain things like Stephen King's It. I know there's so many things in the book that just would not go very well on the screen. But no, Dr. Sleep, for me, it's 5 stars.
Yeah, I agree. That was my favorite. It might have been my favorite movie that year. I'm not sure. I think Endgame, beat it out just a little bit just because of how that was just like the greatest theater experience. But on paper, that was my favorite movie that year. And as far as like horror films in recent years, like we talked about Hereditary, we talked about the Jordan Peele movies, like these movies that people are walking out of the year going, damn, that was the standout. Like Dr. Sleep is the movie probably over the past 5 or 6 years, horror wise, where I'm like, that one, watch that one.
And Joker barely beat out Dr. Sleep for me for 2019.
Okay.
Joker was phenomenal.
It was good.
And
it was good.
Right. And last and final question, Cody, what is your most anticipated film for 2021?
As it stands right now, it's Candyman. It's not a popular pick, but I love the original Candyman, and I actually just got introduced to it only a couple of years ago. Me and a group of friends that most of us still do a lot of things together, we decided to review Candyman because the Shout Factory release was coming out, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it, I'll watch it. And I watched it, and I'm like, why did I not grow up watching this? I'm pissed. I missed so many years of Candyman. Can't say much for the sequels, but when you look at on paper what they're doing with this movie, even though I'm kind of getting a little burnout on this, we'll just delete all the sequels and start from scratch kind of trend that we're going through. I think Candyman is one that definitely needs that. So I like the approach that they're taking. I thought that the trailer that we got was great. There's so much mystery and intrigue with what they're doing. Like, you know, is Tony Todd going to be there? Is this new guy going to be Candyman? Is it going to be passing the torch? What's going on? I have so many questions and so much faith that it's going to be the true sequel to the first film and really going to kick that name Candyman back up into the space that it should be as far as horror icons go. The fact that it was delayed was like heartbreaking for me. I was like, oh my God, not that one. Like I understand money wise why they wouldn't want to put it on VOD, but that's the one movie, like for selfish reasons, I was like, come on, just give it to me. But yeah, that's the one so far this year that I'm most anticipating for sure.
Okay. And I'm confused. Is it produced by Jordan Peele or is it directed by Jordan?
It's produced. Yes, it's produced by Jordan Peele. It's directed by a woman named Nia DaCosta, I believe is her last name. She just got the job to do Captain Marvel 2. So I take that, even though I didn't like the first Captain Marvel, I take that as a sign that whatever big wigs in Hollywood saw Candyman, they're like, shit, this girl's got it. I mean, they just hand her Captain Marvel. So that to me gives a lot of praise. But yeah, that's one of the things that annoy me about this. Everybody keeps calling it Jordan Peele's Candyman, and I'm like, it's not Jordan Peele's Candyman. Like this, he's not directing it. I don't think he even wrote it. He's just producing it. His name is there because he's the recognizable name, but this is her movie. Talk about her too.
Yeah, that's what I've just been confused with, if it's actually his movie or if he's just a part of it.
Well, the way that they've marketed it, you would assume it's his movie because all you hear is his name. All you hear is his name. You've never once heard Nia DaCosta's Candyman. And it's like, okay, give her credit where credit is due. It's one of those situations that's shitty because if the movie's awesome, he's going to get all the credit. If the movie sucks, they're going to say it's her fault.
Yep. I can completely agree with that one. I already said what mine was. Mine was Halloween Kills because, again, I'm a huge Halloween fan. I just want to see how this next chapter is going to go. I'm hoping it is the bloodiest, most carnage-filled Halloween film we've ever gotten.
It is. That I can tell you that without having seen it. Like I literally asked this question. Like my friend of mine that saw it, he's like, man, like it's the goriest Halloween, and I'm like, even gorier than Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? And he goes, yes, like without hesitation. And I'm like, okay,
Wow.
We'll see.
Wow. Wow. Oh, man, I'm even more excited now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, you guys, that is going to do it for this episode of the Midwest Cantina podcast. I want to thank my guest, Cody Leach. And Cody, is there anything you like to plug? And what are you going to be up to?
Well, I'm currently going through the Wrong Turn franchise. I've uploaded the first 3 films. I'm going to upload 4, 5, and 6 here within the next couple of days because my Blu-ray of the new one should be showing up on Tuesday. So I want to be able to review that one as soon as possible. So if you want to see, if you're a fan of the Wrong Turn franchise, come by and check it out. If you're not a fan and you want to see somebody squirm through them, come by and check it out. So you have that, and here next month, me and Brian Lomax, a buddy of mine, are going to be doing our top 100 films of all time. I've been doing a lot of top 50s over the past couple of months leading up to it. Top 50 horror films, top 50 action films, comedies. Now we're going to do the big one. And I think that's it off the top of my head. I definitely have more coming out, but off the top of my head, that's the main priorities at the moment.
All righty. Well, that sounds like a great time, man. I can't wait to watch all them videos.
Mm-hmm.
So, alrighty, guys. I linked Cody's channel and his Twitch channel down below in the description. Make sure you guys head on over, go check him out. Again, great content creator. If you love horror, this is my opinion is the guy to go to. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, and make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.